You can hear me okay?
I can hear you okay.
Great. Well, first, let me say that I'm delighted, Derek, that you're willing to continue in public service. And as you know, when you came out of private sector this last time, I thank you for your willingness to serve, knowing it's going to be it was going to be an exciting experience. I had no idea that we'd be going through what we have in terms of just these historic challenges, particularly the global pandemic. But your background and your record are needed right now badly. So I'm supportive. Probably the most important part about your background to this committee is the fact that you once were a HISGAC staffer, so you know what we go through. But you've been in the private sector, you've been successful there. You've been in the public sector, been successful there. You actually were a presidential management fellow at OMB, which you didn't mention earlier. You've also worked for a biotech startup, which I think is actually helpful right now with what's going on with regard to COVID-19 challenges. And so I'm appreciative that you are willing to step up. And based on your answers today to the questions that have been posed, obviously you have a good sense of what the deputy role is. You're effectively doing it, and that's important too. You know, we don't have time to bring people up to speed right now. It's a marathon being run at a sprinter's pace, and I appreciate your willingness to serve, and I'm going to be supportive. What I will tell you is this committee always wants more and better information. And as the chair of PSI, as you know, we struggle with this constantly. And so I'd like your commitment today, as you have given already to Senator Peters, that you will be there to be responsive to our requests and help us to be able to do our important oversight job.
Absolutely, Senator Portman. You have my word.
There are a number of projects I've talked to you about in the context of our conversation on this nomination. And one is the Safeguarding American Innovation Act. I see Senator Hassan is on and others who are co-sponsors of this legislation. But it basically says we've got to stop China from taking our innovation, our research, in some cases, our intellectual property that they then patent. And it's been going on for 20 years. And the only way to do it effectively, we thought, was to give OMB a significant role here because there are so many agencies and departments involved, including NIH, including National Science Foundation, including Department of Energy and others. And so we established this Federal Research Security Council at the Office of Management and Budget to include representatives from all these federal science agencies, of course, but also the Intelligence Committee. And the notion is that we would take what's already been started at the Office of Science and Technology, which is in the White House, and really supercharge it with the authorities of the Office of Management and Budget. Their job would be to coordinate all the grant-making agencies to share information for the first time about grantees, look at the risks of national security risks of some research, modernize the federal grant-making process, and develop a uniform grant application. By the way, the agencies are looking for this. They're actually supportive of it, knowing that we've got a huge challenge. NIH, just as an example, fired effectively 54 scientists, 54, 90% of whom, by the way, had ties to China. This just happened in the last couple of weeks. And we see case after case of these arrests being made. And it's what's happened is really been sort of very helpful to China and very harmful to us in terms of our economy and our military. So I appreciate your already having reviewed this legislation. First, do you support the legislation? And second, should the legislation become law, do you commit to supporting the establishment of the Federal Research Security Council quickly?
Absolutely. Senator Portman, thank you for flagging this very important issue. I've taken a close look at the proposed legislation. One of the great sections of the proposed legislation that you, Senator Hassan, have introduced is Section 11 on federal grant application fraud. It gives us the tools we need to really prosecute the issue you've surfaced, that developing R&D and then exporting it to countries that may not be friendly is a major problem. We currently don't have some of the tools to prosecute that. However, the legislation you propose really provides us with some of those tools to pursue those and shut off some of those liabilities.
Thank you. Now, I should say that Senator Carper at the Permanent Subcommittee was my partner in the investigation and also is the co-author of the legislation. And it is a bipartisan bill. And it's really a nonpartisan issue and one where we're going to need your help to be able to ensure that we are better organized in our own federal government. You know, there's a lot of finger pointing at China, some of it very deserved. But really, to me, our first job is to get our own house in order. And it is amazing how naive we have been and how we have been so lax to permit this to be able to happen. On federal infrastructure, we're talking about a new COVID-19 bill that might have some significant funding for infrastructure. I think there's actually some great opportunities there, including filling in the state coffers because they have less gas tax and yet a lot of shovel-ready merit-based projects that we could help on. Others have talked about the need for more infrastructure spending in other areas like fiber optic cable for broadband, particularly expansion in rural areas. The problem we've had with a lot of this stuff is permitting, and the federal permitting process has gotten out of hand over the years. We still rank something like 26th in the world in terms of our ability to green light a project, and so infrastructure dollars globally don't tend to come to the United States. What has really helped is this infrastructure permitting council. The OMB is responsible for housing this council. It includes all the different departments and agencies that have to do with permitting. We finally have a good executive director there. Not that, well, we finally have an executive director who's there and actually has been appointed. The acting executive director did the best that she could, but we finally have somebody there permanently. And we're making some progress. Do you commit to supporting the permitting council's work as deputy OMB? Because that'll be one of your responsibilities. And do you have any suggestions how we can bring more transparency, accountability, and efficiency to the permitting process going forward?
Absolutely. And thank you for your leadership on this. A lot of the permitting advances we have made are largely because of FAST41, in which you were a key player in that. And that at DOT, the permitting dashboard and the management of the permitting dashboard was a responsibility of mine. And so I managed the team that managed the permitting dashboard. I think one of the important aspects of the FIPSI is making sure that we incorporate all of the types of permittings that exist. We don't have full coverage. I think one of the types of projects that we should also consider are projects that aren't simply mining, transportation, infrastructure projects, but are there other projects out there in which we should broaden the scope of FIPSI to incorporate, to ensure that if you have a permit for a specific task, you can use that permit for other projects as well. So I look forward to working with you. This is such an important issue and frankly, a fairly cost-efficient way to accelerate infrastructure in this country.
Yeah. Well, thank you. My time is up. I will just say you're right about FIPSI. We do have legislation to expand it to other areas because it's worked. It saved over $1 billion. Think about that. It saved over $1 billion. Otherwise wasted money, much of it taxpayer funding. And it has not short-circuited the process. In other words, we still have the NEPA reviews and so on. It's been bipartisan. Senator McCaskill and I were the original authors, but it's one where we need to get rid of the sunset, keep it in place, and make sure it expands to more and more projects because it really works to save money. And if we're going to put more federal money against infrastructure, let's be sure that dollar can be stretched as far as possible by having sensible permitting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good luck there.